We are looking at a stack of sources today that feels, well, less like a religious text and more like a psychological thriller.
It really does.
We're doing a deep dive into the Tafseer of Ibn Kathir, specifically on Surah Al-Anfal, which is chapter 8 of the Quran. We're going to cover verses 1 through 42.
And this section is all about one single event, the Battle of Badr.
Exactly.
And if you're expecting some, dry theological list of rules, you are going to be surprised. This is a gritty, almost minute-by-minute account of an event that really shouldn't have happened the way it did.
It's a case study, isn't it, on human nature under just extreme pressure. We're talking fear, greed, politics.
And the whole psychology of belief itself, it's all in there.
Let's start with the title, Al-Anfal. It translates to the spoils of war.
Which is kind of a strange choice when you think about it.
Right. You'd think a chapter about a miraculous victory would be called, I don't know, the victory or the angels or something.
Oh, but no. It highlights the loot, the stuff, and that immediately grounds the whole event in a very raw reality.
So what happens?
The battle ends, the dust settles, and the very first thing that happens isn't a prayer circle. It's an argument.
Over the spoils.
A big one. The sources describe this three-way dispute. You had the guys who physically collected all the assets on the battlefield.
Okay, the collectors.
Then you had the group that chased the fleeing enemy off the map.
The pursuers.
And finally, the group that stayed back to guard the Prophet Muhammad. Bodyguards.
And it's such a classic human conflict. The collectors are basically like saying, hey, possession is 9/10 of the law. We're holding it. It's ours.
And the pursuers are pushing back, saying, wait a minute. You were only safe enough to grab that stuff because we were out there, chasing the bad guys away.
And the bodyguards must be feeling left out.
Completely. They're saying, look, we wanted to fight and grab loot too, but we had the single most critical job. Don't punish us for doing our duty.
It's a workplace dispute with swords. I mean, the tension must have been incredibly high. These people just survived a potential massacre.
And now they're about to fight each other over some armor and a few camels.
So how is it resolved?
That's why verse 1 is so blunt. It basically tells them all to shut up. It says the spoils belong to Allah and the messenger, period.
It just takes ownership away from everyone.
Exactly. To force a reconciliation, the message is pretty clear. You are all focused on the petty economics of this, but you are missing the massive historical shift that just happened.
To understand that shift, we have to look at the setup. Because Badr wasn't even supposed to be a pitched battle, right? It started as more of a heist.
Essentially, yeah. The Muslims in Medina were eyeing a massive trade caravan. It was led by Abu Sufyan. We're talking huge wealth. And it was lightly guarded.
The economic lifeline of the Quraysh in Mecca.
The plan was simple. Intercept it, take the wealth, and cripple Mecca's economy.
But the intel got complicated. And this is where the story gets really cinematic. There's this incident with 2 water carriers.
This is such a crucial moment. The Muslims are camped out, waiting. They capture 2 boys who are drawing water, and they start interrogating them. Who are you with?
And the boys tell the truth.
They say, we are with the Quraysh army.
And the Muslims don't believe them.
They beat them. They assume the boys are lying because they want the answer to be, we are with the caravan.
They want the easy target.
Of course. So every time the boys say army, they get hit. Every time they lie and say caravan, they get released.
It's a perfect example of confirmation bias. You're literally punishing the truth because it's not what you want to hear.
Until the prophet steps in, he sees what's happening and says, when they tell you the truth, you beat them, but when they lie, you let them go. He realizes the caravan has escaped and the army is here.
And he asks them a very clever question.
He asks, how many camels does the army slaughter for food each day?
Which is a brilliant way to estimate troop strength. Without asking for a head count, the boys probably wouldn't know.
Right. And they answer 9 or 10. Now, 1 camel feeds about 100 men, so he does the math in his head, right there.
The enemy is between 900 and 1,000 strong.
And the Muslims, they're only about 313. Poorly equipped. I think they had 2 horses in the whole group.
2 horses.
That's when the reality sinks in. The source material is so honest about the mood here. It's not enthusiastic. It says they felt as if they were being driven to death while looking right at it.
They were terrified.
And I think that's so important to highlight. Sometimes these texts make the heroes sound like fearless supermen. But the Quran here is showing their hesitation. They wanted the caravan.
Easy win.
The text calls it the one not armed. It's the logical human choice. You pick the treasure chest, not the spear to the face.
But the text says the divine plan was different.
Right. It says Allah wanted the armed conflict to justify the truth and cut off the roots of the disbelievers. The caravan would have been a financial win, for sure, but the battle was an existential turning point.
So you have this reluctant, outnumbered group on one side. Let's flip the script. What's going on with the enemy? Because the text gives us this incredible flashback to what was happening in Mecca before the army even left.
This takes us to Dar al-Nadwa, the council house in Mecca. This is verse 30. And the chiefs of Quraysh are holding this crisis meeting to decide on a final solution for the Prophet Muhammad problem.
And they put 3 options on the table: prison, exile, or death.
Right. But then the source introduces a character that just changes the tone completely. An old man from Najd walks into the meeting.
And the text identifies him as Iblis, as Satan in human form.
Which is a massive claim. It suggests that this political decision to go to war wasn't just human arrogance. It was being actively accelerated by a malevolent spiritual force.
So what does he do? How does he influence them?
Well, he's very persuasive. One chief suggests imprisonment. The old man shoots it down. He says his followers will just break him out.
Okay, logical enough.
Another suggests exile. The old man says, no, that's worse. He's too charismatic. He'll go to another tribe, win them over, and then march back here and destroy you.
So he backs the most violent option, Abu Jahl's plan.
The assassination. But it's not just a murder. It's a mob hit. A very specific kind of mob hit.
How so?
They wanted a young man from every single tribe to strike him simultaneously. The idea was to spread the blood guilt so wide that the Prophet's family couldn't possibly declare war on all the tribes at once.
They'd be forced to just accept blood money instead.
It's a grimly brilliant political strategy.
Obviously, that plan failed, which is what led to the army's meeting at Badr. But even on the battlefield, the enemy's psychology is just fascinating. There's this verse where they literally pray for their own destruction.
Verse 32 is the height of irony. The text says Abu Jahl stands there and prays, "O Allah, if this is the truth from you, then rain down stones on us from the sky."
Just think about the logic there. He doesn't pray, if this is the truth, then guide me to it.
No. He prays, if I'm wrong, kill me.
It shows that their resistance wasn't intellectual. It was purely ego. They preferred annihilation over admitting they might be wrong.
They stake their entire existence on being right, to the point where they invited divine punishment just to prove a point. It's staggering.
And the text kind of dismisses their other religious rituals, too.
Yeah.
It talks about their worship at the house being nothing but buka and tasdiya.
Whistling and clapping. It paints a picture of a culture that has completely lost its spiritual core. It's just noise, hollow rituals.
A stark contrast to the, intense, trembling faith of the believers that the text described earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about that intense faith, because once the battle actually starts, the text shifts from history to something supernatural. We have to talk about the angels.
Right. The believers call for help, and the response is immediate, a promise of 1,000 angels. But the key word the text uses is murtifin.
Which means?
It means in succession, or one behind the other. This is a crucial detail. It wasn't some chaotic swarm of spirits. It was a structured military reinforcement. The sources even detail the command structure. Jibril leading the right flank with 500, Mikael on the left with another 500.
It implies that even divine intervention has order.
Yeah.
Discipline. It's not just magic, it's a superior force being deployed.
And for the soldiers on the ground, it was visceral. There's this narration from Ibn Abbas where a Muslim soldier is chasing a Meccan fighter. He's running him down, and suddenly he hears a whip crack in the air above him.
A whip.
And a rider's voice yelling, "Advance, O Hazum!"
Hazum being the name of the angel's horse.
Right. And before the Muslim soldier can even swing his own sword, the enemy in front of him just drops dead.
What?
He goes to check the body, and the man's nose is smashed and his face is slashed green as if he'd been struck by a massive whip.
That is terrifying.
It is, and it sort of validates the believer's effort while also reminding them that the victory wasn't entirely their own.
There are environmental miracles too, right? Things that seem subtle but totally change the tactical landscape. Like the rain.
Yeah, the rain is amazing. Badr is a sandy valley, and if you've ever tried to run on a beach in loose, dry sand, you know your feet just sink. It kills your momentum.
Right.
The night before the battle, it rained. Now, for the enemy, on their side of the valley, it did exactly what you'd expect. It turned their ground into a swamp, hindered their movement.
A mess.
But for the Muslims, the rain packed the sand down. It made the ground firm, solid under their feet. So the same rain created a highway for one army and a trap for the other.
And what about the sleep? The text says a slumber overcame them as a security.
I mean, imagine the night before a battle where you are outnumbered 3-1. You should be hyperventilating. You should be up all night pacing.
Absolutely.
Instead, they all just passed out. It was like a psychological reset. They woke up refreshed and calm, while the enemy likely spent the night stewing in anxiety.
There's one verse that just perfectly sums up this interplay between human effort and divine action. Verse 17. The prophet throws a handful of sand.
And the text says, you threw not when you threw, but Allah threw.
It's the defining theological concept of the whole chapter, really.
It is. You have to take the action. You have to physically throw the sand. But the effect, the sand miraculously blinding the eyes of an entire army, that's not you. That's the divine. It bridges that gap between free will and destiny.
Okay, so the battle is won. The dust clears. And now the text pivots to legislation. It starts laying down the rules of engagement. And these are strict.
Extremely. Verse 15 deals with desertion. It is strictly forbidden to turn your back to the enemy. There are only 2 exceptions.
Which are?
A tactical maneuver like a feigned retreat to lure the enemy in, or withdrawing to join another one of your own units.
But if you just run out of fear?
The text threatens the wrath of Allah and hellfire. It frames cowardice not just as a military failure, but as a spiritual one.
And you have to understand, in ancient warfare, the line holding is everything.
Everything. If one guy runs, panic spreads, the line breaks, and everybody dies. So the spiritual penalty had to match the physical stakes.
And then we circle back to the money, the loot that started the whole argument in the intro. Verse 41 lays out the 1/5 rule, the kumis.
And this is fascinating economic policy. Before this, the rule of war was basically winner takes all, or maybe the strongest guy grabs the most.
Right.
Here, the text institutionalizes it. 4/5 of the spoils are distributed among the soldiers, the people who actually took the risk.
So the grunts get paid.
The grunts get paid, exactly. But the remaining 1/5 is essentially taxed. It goes to Allah and the messenger. But look at where that money is designated.
Where does it go?
For relatives, orphans, the poor, and the wayfarer.
It's a social welfare system funded by state revenue.
It is. It ensures that military victory translates directly into support for the most vulnerable members of society. It's not just about enriching the generals. And the prophet was incredibly strict about the integrity of this.
How so?
He warned that stealing even a needle or a single thread from the spoils before it was distributed would bring shame and fire on the day of judgment.
No embezzlement allowed.
Zero tolerance. It establishes this idea that public assets are a sacred trust.
We should also mention the geography again, because verse 42 makes a really interesting point about the appointment.
It does. It describes the positions. Muslims on the near side of the valley, the enemy on the farther side, the caravan down on the low ground. But then it says something like, if you had made an appointment, you would have failed to keep it.
Meaning, if they had all sat down and scheduled this battle, okay, Tuesday at noon at Badr, the Muslims probably wouldn't have shown up.
Or the negotiations would have fallen apart, or fear would have won out. The text emphasizes that this happened without appointment so that the ordained matter could be accomplished.
It was a collision course that neither side was fully in control of.
It just walked into a destiny that was bigger than their own plans.
It really frames the whole event as something inevitable. So looking at this whole picture, the psychology, the spies, the angels, the economics, what is the big takeaway, the so what of all this?
Well, the source itself refers to this day as Yom al-Furqan, the day of criterion, or the day of separation.
Separation between what?
The core message is that this event physically distinguished truth from falsehood. It wasn't just a skirmish in the desert. It was the moment where this small, beleaguered group stood their ground and survived against all odds, validating their entire existence.
But there's a warning in there too, isn't there? 1 John 5 talks about fitna.
Yes, and fitna is a complex word. It means trials, discord, afflictions. The verse warns, and fear a trial which will not strike those who have wronged among you exclusively.
That's chilling. It sounds like a warning about collective responsibility.
It is. It's a warning against apathy. If you see corruption or evil in your society and you do nothing because, I'm a good person, it won't affect me, you're wrong.
Because it eventually will.
And when the consequences hit, when the fitna comes, it washes over everyone. The innocent get caught in the blast radius of the guilty.
That's a heavy thought to carry. But I want to leave the listener with what might be the most provocative psychological insight in this whole section. It's from verse 24.
Know that Allah comes between a person and his heart.
What does that even mean?
I mean, it's the ultimate check on human ego. We like to think we are the captains of our souls, right? That
Yeah.
we are in complete control of what we believe and what we want.
But this verse suggests that the heart is slippery.
It suggests that your heart, the very seat of your belief and emotions, isn't fully your own property. The source interprets this as meaning God can prevent a believer from sliding into disbelief,
Okay.
but also that he can seal a disbeliever's heart from ever accepting faith. It implies this deep fragility to our internal state.
It's a reminder not to be arrogant about where you stand, because you don't even fully own the ground you're standing on, so to speak.
Precisely. It's a call to be constantly vigilant about what you let into your heart, because once it turns, you might not be the one who can turn it back.
That is a lot to process. We've gone from a dispute over some loot to the fundamental fragility of the human soul.
It's quite a journey.
This was a true deep dive. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.